What's up, brothers? Sean Don here. You're watching Garage Strength TV.
Throw that ass in a circle, circle. Throw that ass in a circle, circle. Throw that ass in a circle, circle. Throw that ass in a circle.
I guess we need to do welcome to the Throw Show, Kalnas.
Welcome.
And I think if I can introduce you to people who don't know, I think that so you've thrown 2019. You had 2 or 3 throws over 20 meters, a couple throws in 1990 plus. Qualified for 2 Olympic trials, and you were the first guy out in 2016 by like 2 centimeters.
And 2012.
And 2012. And as much as you might be offended by this, but I would call you like the journeyman shot putter, where you just kept grinding and grinding and working full time and doing as much as you can while you were still training. And I think that you almost sort of, dude, I think that you sort of started a whole generation of post-collegiate throwers that never would have thought that they could keep throwing and have a normal life and still compete at that high elite level. And I think that you were like sort of that first wave of guys that actually proved that you could do that. But also, for anybody who doesn't know, John and I trained together for a year in 2004. And then after that, it was sort of like he and I spent so much time, like quite a bit of time communicating and just talking and talking.
Well, the first time I came to your house, I had to bring shot puts back or something like that.
Yeah.
You and your brother were down in the basement printing out FBI files that are now made public from 30 years ago.
From the Freedom of Information Act. Yeah, I think that's the best thing, is that you've known me through every phase I've ever had, and all those phases that I did have, that I still have in my back pocket that nobody really knows about, you know about.
Are we censored? Like literally, what can we?
No, you can talk about anything like that, because I mean Trevor might be Trevor might have a
no.
different...
I want to hear this stuff.
So actually, starting off, when John moved to Penn State, and John had like a couple weeks where he was throwing. This is back when the ring was popular and all that.
Why don't you tell? Like, I don't know how you guys like actually got acquainted with each other in the first place.
So John was a 3-time NCAA All-American at Monmouth University. He's got the school record there, and he like ignited their throws program basically, and he won Penn relays his senior year or junior year, and then ended up 2004. Well, so 3-time All-American, and this is back when like Joachim Olsen was in the NCAA, Yanis Roberts was in the NCAA, Hoffa was in the NCAA. So there was a bunch of like big guns that were from his era, and his coach Mark Gottdenker. So when I went to Penn State, the first day that I stepped on campus, my college coach that recruited me quit. He got another job somewhere else. And what ends up happening is we hired the Monmouth coach, Mark Gottdenker, and then Mark moves to Penn State. And so his first year at Penn State, John was still training post-collegiate. The problem with John is that John was as bad as me with booze and partying, but he was much more athletic, so he could get away with booze and partying. But
no, I just didn't kick out headlights and get caught doing dumb shit. I always had a sense of when stuff got heated, I knew when to get out. I had like a good primal sense of that.
That's when Dane would get in.
Yeah.
In jail in 8th grade. Shoplifting, smoking weed, getting crazy. But I knew when the place started to get heated, I was out of there. So I never got caught. Everybody else got caught.
But so his first year out, Mark was pissed because he wasn't throwing as well as he should have been. And long story short, Mark basically I think the throwers at Penn State, even talking with you, sort of convinced him to come to Penn State. and train with us. And what I would say is that up until that point, I had always sort of been like the alpha male of every scenario I was in. Even my freshman year, you know, I threw really well as a freshman, and I was the strongest kid on the team. And in comes Jon, and like I'm looking at this guy, and YouTube had literally just started, so it was like YouTube had just begun, and Jon's posting videos of him doing like these side twists. Actually, it might have been a year after you left Penn State, but
that was a year after. I was doing bar sides in the clown outfit.
Yeah, in the clown outfit. But okay, so that's not the story of him scaring me. Him not scaring me, but being intimidated was like he would be in the weight room, and he would always scream like, "Wake up!" Like he would start screaming at himself to wake up, and he'd bang his head on the bar to squat. And I remember
that dude, he's long gone, man.
Yeah, and I remember you squatting, and we were like maxing out, and we had all squatted up to like 500 and done like 3 or 4 reps, and basically we were like, all right, our projected max off of 500 for for like 3 or 4 reps would be 550. Jon got under 500 and busted out 12 reps. Dude, we were all sitting there at like 6. He's like, every rep, like screaming like crazy. And he just kept going. And finally he just racks it. He's like, I'm fucking done. Walks out of the weight room, and we're all like, dude, this guy. And we had just met him like 3 or 4 weeks prior. And I even think, Jon, that was the night that we ended up going to my brother's apartment and just smashing shots of tequila.
That's my cousin came and vomited all over your brother's floor.
But so
the last of that night, I remember you and your brother were just on top of each other, wrestling and then punching each other in the face. And it kind of got to across the point of seriousness, and you guys were looking at each other like you're ready to kill each other. And you kept punching each other in the face.
My brother was like, "Hit me," and I was just like, boom, like right in the face. He's like, "Hit me again," and I was like, boom, dude. He's like, "Keep hitting me." I went off on him like straight to his face as hard as I could, and he sat up, hit his head on the bunk bed above him, falls back, and I thought he got knocked out by that. And he looks at me, he's like, "Hit me again," and I like punched him in the face again. But this, we'll stop with that. So I think what was so unique with my experience with you is it taught me how to train. Like I learned how to train because of that time with you. Like you taught me, like, dude, you feel like shit. And sadly, a lot of the times that we felt like shit was just because we were drunk.
Yeah.
But it was like constantly, you came in, and Trevor and I often talk about this with Throws University, is that like what we're trying to do is like we want to change the culture and of what the throwing world is. And I think like for you taught me what that meant. Like that was that first exposure to, one, how to be an elite athlete, but two, you also had that technical mindset where it was like, dude, I'm a small guy. I'm not, I'm strong, but I'm not stupid strong. And I've got to use technique to throw far. And I remember
that year I was 242.
Yeah. So he was a smaller guy.
Wow.
And at one point he had even had, like I remember one practice where he had like 3 or 4 throws 67, 68 feet in training right before you hurt your groin.
Yeah, that was look back on that. That was really dumb because me and Mark went down to Georgia.
Yeah, Titan James.
Through like shit, so it was so hot and humid, and then he decides to let's drive back up. So we drive 11, 12 hours back up. The positive side is we did get flashed by some chicks in a car on the way back up. But then Mark got a ticket.
Yeah, Mark.
A speeding ticket. But we get back up, and then instead of taking Sunday off after sitting in the car after competing for 10, 11 hours, I go out and I do a jog and stretch where I should have just took the day off, and that Monday is when I strained my groin. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Honestly, I should have stayed out there another year, but for some reason I was like, that's it, I'm done, and I left and went home.
Yeah, I actually think if he would have stayed out another year, it probably would have helped me stay a little straighter.
Yeah, he would hit 60 fucking feet.
Yeah, but I think I think what you did for me was awesome, and then what was cool for me is like, so then when I moved to train with Dr. B, Jon at one point was like, dude, you know, can you send me some programs? And we set up. This is like by March or April. I want to say we did maybe one or two programs, and then you hit that PR at 2019. And
we went. It was the start of a second phase, 5 days in, and I actually used that protocol, which for the kids that I use now that are really into it. But we switched to the 18, and I went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, throwing the 18 and doing strength specific with some speed lifts, and took the Thursday off. Dude, I remember everything from that Friday at Princeton. That shit was epic.
Yeah.
Naked boy. All right, bud. But I remember that was as I was jogging around, even though I was slightly sore, I actually felt like somebody was pushing me in my back. Like I felt like something was pushing. Like I literally felt spring. Like there was something else pushing me. On top of some random dude in the woods playing the bagpipes as I was working out. I worked up. That was, and the energy was in the air because there was a storm coming, so they didn't know if they were going to get the throws in time. The temperature was great. I took a nap prior to it. Did like a lucid type. Like dreaming state that I like to do like an hour and a half or so before to kind of get myself rested. And dude, when I hit 20 meters, I would not scream, and I sounded like a fucking train, fucking horn just going. And then I did it again, and I'll never forget that feeling through my left lat by extending my left arm in the back of the circles. My left got down. That stretch. Yeah. I always use that type of cue for the kids that I train today.
And I think that's actually the cue that he was the one, and Trevor will probably, I love that you just said that, because Trevor always, I feel like that's my most overused cue, is focusing on the left arm. I'll be like, left arm. Yeah. But like the first time that Jon was like, dude, you gotta like hold and then open that up and feel that big stretch across the chest. And I remember the first time I felt that being like, oh, okay. And that's what, like, that's a cue that I like to use, because it teaches them how to start to use the left side to actually finish a throw. And that's like how he just described it when you, this is my thing with Jon, is that I think that he has a way with words that you're just like, you can feel what he's saying while he's saying it. And I think that was like the most important part about training with you, Jon, was that I would sit there and be like, oh, okay, and almost, and I remember, in British Columbia at the time, so we were 3 hours behind. You called me like right before we were gonna go to training, and you were like, Dane, motherfucker, if I could bottle this fucking shit up and put it in a fucking pill, I'd be a fucking millionaire. And I'm sitting there like holding my phone, and my roommate knew we were like he would follow you on the ring and on YouTube, and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, I went 2019, motherfucker. And I was just like, holy shit. And that's where, and we pretty much worked the rest of that year, and then the following year, even when you went 1990 at Homedale.
I started, that's when I started I was burning the candle at both ends with work and all that shit. And I went to adrenal fatigue and fucked after that. Yeah, but going back is that I would watch Jon. So Jon's, and I even think I might even have a podcast where somebody asks like our favorite throws, and your PR throw is my top 3 favorite throws to watch. Like I would watch that when I would be training with Lincoln. I would watch that to go out to training, because that you can hear it in your voice, like that sound, and I'm seeing a replay right now as you're talking.
Yeah, and you go like this, and Nick Price always described it as like Jon hits it and he's like, "Bah, yeah, motherfucker," and like walks out down the sector, and he's just going ape shit, and like Jon's wife, Caitlin, cut off the video because she thought he got hurt. Yeah, but I think I've even posted pictures way back, like way back on Garage Strength, of you where both of your feet are down, and you're like way out over the toe board, and the shot's like just coming off your hand, and you haven't even started to reverse yet. And I think that like that's something that I still like. I love that, and I the whole
I look back on the video, and not only is it like a great feeling, a great high, and something how you're going to feel that ever again in your life type stuff, but I look at it and go, shit, look how my technique didn't change.
Yeah.
My technique really didn't change much. All it was the training changed from a very linear path to something that got away from all those heavy weights. It turned into, now it's nervous. It's all about nervous system.
Yeah.
Into a certain strength, it's about playing with the nervous system. Yeah. That's what I try to tell the kids.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is perfect, because you're like, dude, at that point, so that was 2009 or 2008. So by that point, you've benched, almost 500 pounds. You've back squatted what would in reality be 600 plus. You've cleaned in sneakers. You've cleaned 410 pounds. Like, you had a clear reserve of strength, and then it was just, okay, now let's focus on this technique and start working a little bit quicker. And I think that's where, we get all these AMAs all the time on Throws You and all these questions. It's always like, strength levels matter, and strength levels can predict what you're going to throw. But once you get to a certain strength point, there's that point of diminishing returns. And that point of diminishing returns might be a little bit higher for me or a little bit lower for you. It all depends on the person. But it's finding where that strength, that point is. And then it becomes, okay, now we're at that elite level, and we got to really start to tweak what we're doing, because we don't need to be 27, 28 years old and back squatting 600 plus pounds, because we want to try and elongate the career of that individual.
Yeah, when in 2016, I think the last squatting I did was front squatting in February. Outside of that, it was all either step ups with dumbbells, kettlebells, or basically single leg plyometrics. That's it.
Yeah.
And there was no more. There was. I would have been. I maybe could have, if you got me jacked up, I maybe would have been able to do 450 on the back squat for one.
Yeah.
Would you throw pretty often?
My bench when I was 36 years old. My bench was only 330.
You're pathetic.
Yeah, it's horrible. Guess what it is now?
And what do you throw at 36?
1943.
I was at that meet, John.
No, it was 38, because 43 would have made it in.
42.
It was 42.
I was at the meet.
19.
But you know what?
That was the coolest.
Jason says 42.
Actually, I even used that throw because I just used that throw to show. I want to say I was showing Rachel, because I was like, dude, John, look how fat and sloppy John is in this video.
293.
And you went 1940. But that video, even though it's not an amazing technical throw, you still stayed on that finish for a while. That's why.
You know what my best throw that year was before that?
What?
It was like 18 flat.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that you went 19 plus.
Well, that's the thing. Like it's gearing up towards that one time. I couldn't maintain far distances. Like I was telling the kids, like when I went 64.6 in NCAA's, my season best prior to that was 58. And then we started the peak phase, and then it just climbed within 4 weeks. So I have a good grasp on how my body works, and a couple of the kids, I have a good idea of how their body works, so I can get the kind of same result out of them. But that meet, I threw the same throw twice, which means I should have thrown further.
Yeah.
I was too hyped up. I should have delayed longer. I was too hyped up. My kid was there. I pulled the fucking stroller up to the circle. The officials were like, "You can't do this." I was like, "He's fine. No one throws a fucking shot put backwards." And
that's funny that he says that, because he even
I remember that.
He said to me, dude, and this is what was cool. What sucked is that John didn't throw at the 2016 trials, but then you go out there, and that was like. One of my fondest memories is just being there watching the shot with you and just be like, dude, this is so fun. It's like and Hill
hit that ball.
Yeah, and I just was telling this story about how we were sitting there watching warm-ups, and I think you and I both looked at each other and were like, dude, Darrell's gonna go big. He was warming up and just smashing everything, and he got that first throw at like 21. And we just looked at each other like, dude, he's gonna. And you had I think you were live streaming it, and it was just next throw.
Yeah.
bam, 21 like 73 or something, and we were just like going ape shit. Like, but that's the I think so. One funny part with John is he shows up at Princeton and he's there throwing, and I was throwing, and I was grooving him pretty well for me. So like 17
mid.
And John's like, dude, you were warming up and you know, you were throwing 18 plus. He's like, you get in and think about Lincoln sitting in a bouncy seat, and he's sitting behind the circle right now in his bouncy seat. You think you're going to keep throwing this distance, or you're going to throw farther? And I'm sitting there, I got in the circle and I thought about Lincoln in a bouncy seat, and I blew right out the front, like had this big foul, but I was like, dude, I can't.
That's the way I think. I mean, I don't know how like Hoffa and all those guys thought. Maybe it was more of a sport and science then, but to me it was like, this was a drug. I went from smoking tons of weed in 8th grade, tons, and for some reason got into sports and got me away from that. But the sports kind of translated into that same high. So I was always training for that high.
Yeah.
And knowing within a year I'm going to experience that high. But it was even more gratifying because it took a year to get to that point. It wasn't instant. So you know all the work you put in. But I always put that weight on me of like kids or spirituality or seeing. You know, the clown and all that type of shit that I used to talk about.
Yeah.
It was a weird way to make it make sense for me, for me to hit big things. Now, if I try to explain that to some of the kids now, they're like, "What are you talking about?"
But that's where like I want to pick your brain is like mentally, you know, how do you handle that, dude? Like I have weightlifters that'll break down into tears because Friday they snatched 130 and clean and jerked 170, and they back squatted a 5-rep PR, and 4 days later they can't even come close to that, and they're crying, and I'm sitting there like, you know how the body works. Like, it's not feasible to continue to do that. Like, you're going to break down, you're going to be tired, you're not going to be as good, not as crisp. Whereas with you, it's like you had a full grasp on. That's how training works. When we back off, it's going to be there. You had the mental approach all laid out. And, like, you were always, and that's the thing, too, training with you. That's why I think training with you for another year, even though I would have kept drinking, which would have been, continued the problem, I think my mental outlook would have changed because over time, you were always like, dude, why are you getting so pissed? Like, it's just throwing. Like, this is how it is. You got to deal with this. And I don't.
I remember those times where I used to get pissed, but as you get older, you realize you just can't. Once you realize your body, you can't do things that at a top level all the time of what you can do. So I was that person that would throw 18 meters, 17 meters. I've had some 16-meter throws, and then all of a sudden, when training would taper and we get into the good moving stuff, it would take off, and that's what I was looking for. It's gonna wake the kids up. I don't know. It's a weird way to look at it, but one of the kids that I'm training right now is a computer science major, or is going to computer science major at Carnegie Mellon. And for him to relate it, he gets pissed off because things aren't going well. I'm like, dude, you're putting script on the back end to build a web page, and once that script is being compiled, you can launch your website. Like that's how you got to look at it. Each day, you know it's not good. You got to put the reps in because it's gonna end up paying off. And it's constantly. It's not even the tactic of, I don't know about how you go. It's not even the tactic of training someone and being like, oh, I know how to train and lift this and do that and the rep scheme and all that. It's actually more of how do you keep a teenager in line to believe what you're telling them. That's the hardest part.
Right.
Which I don't even know if that's even talked about in training, and I don't know if you experience that.
We talk about that. I think we talk about. I mean, we were talking about that today. Really.
Yeah.
But
often. I mean, it's just that so many high schoolers, especially, just have such like short-term expectations on everything. Like, oh, I'm not PRing. I didn't PR to meet. Like, something's wrong. Like, you got to reassess everything. It's like, no, that's gonna happen. Like, you got to get used to that if you're gonna be in this sport. But I am curious, just with you and like knowing how hyped you can get at meets. Like, what is your mental process and mental approach to a big competition?
Holy shit! So I don't even know. Maybe it's from watching movies or something like that. But I don't know. It came deep. It wasn't like I was just performing, but it felt like I was showing off what my body could do type thing. So I never thought I was competing against anybody. I was always competing against myself. And if I could have one leg up on my past self, I knew I was improving as a human in that sense. But the mental approach, I used to listen to some weird fucking music and put me into like a repetitive thought state. I would visualize the throw from every different perspective prior to the meet, before bed, to the music. So I had my own little soundtracks when the CDs were big. But I would, like, some of the stuff I would think about would be trying to picture the full throw happening from beginning to end without any distraction. So there would be times where I might be visualizing in bed and I'm pushing left, and then I'm pushing left, and then I'm thinking about boobs. Like, mentally I'm not there. It could be anything, food, or you get distracted. So the goal was to keep repetitively seeing it in my head before I did.
It's actually so accurate though. That's yeah, it's so accurate.
You know, and when I would see, like, I remember NCAAs were down in Arkansas. 2 nights prior to the meet, I did the visualization and couldn't see it, couldn't at all, and then end up passing out. It's like I'm literally falling to sleep as I'm thinking about the perfect throw. Always picture, always picture, always picture. I don't know what anyone else thinks about before they go to bed, but when I was competing, it was the perfect throw. Feeling it, seeing it, doing it, and next thing I know, the sun's coming up and I'm waking up. So the night before NCAAs, I literally had 2 thoughts of distraction, and then the third one, I saw the full throw from a top visual and internally at the same time. So I was seeing my focal points as I was turning, but I was also seeing myself split vision from an upward or downward type look. And I remember opening my eyes and going, "It's on!" Like, I knew, like, that was the trigger, and that's where I went 64.6 and took the second American spot and 5th overall indoors. But there was preparations. Like, I had like, for some reason, I had some clown fixation that was set up in college by Gary Roskowski to kind of like lighten the mood. He knew I was too tense, so he would come up with this clown and just joke around. This kid should have been on SNL. He's so funny. So he would like juggle shit around, act like he's like, "Look, there's the clown," and he's eating a baby's head, just like weird shit. This is what he would tell me to kind of lighten me up. And I ended up throwing a PR in the discus when I never practiced this disc. I went like 51 meters, 52 meters. And so started to cycle in. So I got a positive effect from someone. So I kept using it. And I remember being at Penn State, and I think it was like what is that meet at the end of January?
It's like Sabach.
And I remember being in there, and it's almost like subconsciously.
This is John. It was him, and you were just sitting there like this.
Yeah, I'd be like, I was looking at the kids at Lock Haven, and I see literally subconsciously, I see like kind of like the it clown pop his head out and pop back in. And I was like, it's fucking on. Yeah. It's on. Fuck that clown. Fuck that clown. Like, it was. I don't know if it makes any sense. It was just a weird.
I just love that you related to the kids from Lock Haven. Anybody from Lock Haven watching right now is like, God damn it.
But it put me in that zone. But I knew when I was going to throw well. That's the thing. It was never like a surprise. The body has a certain feeling, and when that feeling's there, the mind just says, "We're going." There is no. It doesn't matter. You know, for instance, we'll use Penn Relays my junior year when I won. The night before, my ex-girlfriend at the time had told me that she was cheating on me, and I had gone to Monmouth to be closer to this girl. And I'll never forget, first throw I went 57, and all of a sudden, boom, know the dude, he pops in my head. He's running around in there, foul, and then I remember telling myself, you can either make this work for you, or you can let it destroy you. And that's when I went 61 on my last throw to win. So that was another thing where it's like there's a mental state, and I mean, and this is the thing. You always try to push kids, be like, you can get through this, you can do this, you can do this. There is a point for me where I know I can't do it, or I can. It's even if I try talking myself into it, there's that there, you just know when you're physically and mentally not able to do it, even if you try to be positive. But that reinforcement encourages the other side of it too, so that when you are in the zone, now you really know you're in the zone. And then you go ape shit. But like at Princeton, when I went, when I was it 2 years ago, when they said shot puts next, and I had no idea really how I was going to feel, even though I set it up exactly how I did years prior. Instantly, I started to shake, and when I shake, I knew I have adrenaline, which means my nervous system is healthy, and if I'm healthy, I'm going to rip a bomb. But if I'm calm and there's no reaction out of me, it's not going to go anywhere. So I knew in the circle. So when the officials were like, "Is everybody ready?" I was like, "Let's fucking go. Let's go." Because I knew I had a small window. Being 36, once I cool down, I'm done. But I knew there was a small window to get that throw in, and I knew I could get a decent throw in. But it didn't make the cut. But it was still a very good high. And Jude, I don't know if he won't remember that, but there's something that's going to click in him to be able to, hopefully in the future, that he saw something like that happen.
Right.
But I don't know if any of that makes sense because the whiskey is kicking in hard right now.
So I guess
I thought that was awesome.
No, I think
that,
it really
that
good.
like makes me like I never was at that extreme, but it, like I think what you're saying like made me think of like little things that I would like play around with in my head, and like kind of did the same sort of things.
I think what you're saying is why people throw. You know, like why people throw is because you have emotional experiences that, and you have an emotional experience that it's unrelatable unless you've like seen your child be born, and that's where it's like, it's, you know, obviously what ends up happening in my mind is that as you realize, as you mature as an individual, you put out all this work in high school. And you throw for maybe the wrong reasons, but you're still learning life lessons. And then as you start to mature in college and you figure out who you are as an individual and who you are as a person, and you're putting in that work and you're starting to see that reward, you really start to value the emotional experience that you're getting from throwing far. And then the people who mature earliest, you know, if you have that experience, you know, that experience that you just shared with Jude, let's say you have that perception earlier when you're 19, 20 years old. Well, now all of a sudden you might take training in a whole different light because you want to get that at an earlier time frame. And it's like whoever matures earliest in the spiritual sense is the one that ends up valuing training the most, and they're the ones that don't clown around at training because they see and they taste that experience at the end of the, you know, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's almost the whole goal, is that we've always got as coaches now is like, okay, how can we get these kids to buy into something like this? How can we get them to understand what that process means? You know, they'll always say, oh, rise and grind or embrace the process. But these people, they don't really even understand what the process is or what you were doing prior to that. And I think that's the ultimate point of a coach. Outside of the technical aspect, but it's getting them to appreciate and value that work, you know.
Are you guys still got me on screen?
Yeah.
All right, I don't see you. Yeah, I mean, it's I always say that the circle is a church. You know, the kids are like, oh, I can't come on Sunday practice. I gotta go to church. I go, God doesn't want you sitting in a fucking church. You know, He wants you outside using the body. You know, experiencing Earth and these experiences. But I found, you know, within the circle, I've had situations where I was emotionally, strung out, that I actually would go to the circle like it was my temple, like my Mecca.
Right.
Even if I wasn't throwing, kind of just sit down in the middle and just, I don't know. It was like my Stonehenge, you know?
I think even for me though, you know, training with you in 2004, that's when I threw my best in the NCAA, and I attribute that to almost that same, you know, I feel like I learned that from you, like that emotional experience and really taking hold and appreciating those results because of just, you know, spending time around you. You still got me to drink too much though.
You did a lot of that on your own too.
I said to Trevor beforehand, I was like, I bet you Kalnas is going to tell us the ditch story.
Dude, well, I forget what it was, like 3 in the morning, you called me, and you're like, dude, you gotta come pick me up. Like, where are you at? He's like, by the hotels. So I drove all the way over there, and I was talking to you on the phone, my little fucking Nokia phone, and I was like, where are you? He's like, I'm right here, and I look to my right, and here you are walking up out of a drainage ditch. And you were trashed, but I have no, I forget why you were hiding there.
I was completely trashed, yeah.
Oh, there was a lot of things. There was a lot of... Cousin Joe was down, and we had to jet out of a certain area in a Jeep.
I forgot about that one.
We had to run away from you because you were destructive. We didn't want to get in trouble.
Jeez. So here's my question with all this, John, is it's like, how would you, as a coach, how do you get kids to stop being self-destructive? Like, cause here's my dilemma. A lot of my, like, I feel like a lot of my life lessons, a lot of lessons I learned were because I was so self-destructive, because I was a drunk, I was a belligerent fool. I would do things to almost purposely ruin my career as an athlete, because I was struggling with who I was and was I happy or not, but I always valued training. So it's like that self-destructive, belligerent, drunk person created who I am now, which I'm happy with who I am now. But it's like, I can't sit here and tell a kid, hey, it's okay to go out and drink when, I don't want them to do the same bullshit that I did, but at the same time, they might learn something about themselves if they do it.
Yeah. No, the kids are pretty, I think now at this stage of my life and the business, when I'm talking to the kids, I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
Even with some of the kids that probably don't want to hear my openness. I probably say too much, definitely. But I think, they're going to have their own experiences, and you're going to try to align them to keep them on track as best they can, so that they can be successful.
Well,
they are going to go off and do some crazy shit, and I hear some of the stories, and then I'll sound like a 90-year-old person yelling at them for this and that, and then I would have been like, well, if you're going to do that, I would have done this. So I still play the devil's advocate. I'm like, I'll yell at them like a parent, but then also goof around with them. And that's the atmosphere I have. Or I don't have kind of the kids I work with. They're not like meathead football weightlifter type kids. They're all kind of, at some point working with them, they were quiet. Maybe had some social phobias. We're trying to find their way in sport or do something. And I think we just got a crew of kids that realize there's other kids out there that are quiet and or have weird interests, and we kind of have like a little mutant family.
Right.
The misfits.
Right.
So I don't have, none of the kids were super athletic kids when they started, and they're all now coming into their own. But I've had tons of kids, and I tell them, I every week I'll have like a new kid, and I'll go through the whole spiel. I was like, watching what you do today, in 4 years you could do this, but you need to do this, and that. And they're like, yeah, I want to do that, And I'll be like, and you're probably not going to, because I've had this conversation with 95% of the other people, and they all are nothing now. Well, there's something, but they could have been better. And you kind of wonder, like, did you not click with the kid? Was it travel distance? Was it money? Like, who knows what it was? But the kids that did grind it out became something, and some of them, with school, they got money for school, which is huge. I mean, that's a huge win for the price they're paying for me. That's pretty cool.
Can you usually like point that out right away, like sift out who's going to be the ones that stick around and put in the work, or do you get surprised?
I'll see the kids that have the talent. I have more kids surprise me that don't have talent that end up doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But I can never point out the kid that's going to stick around because, from 12 years old to 18 years old, so many things happen and change.
Yeah.
You go from being introverted to being a socialite. Then they start talking to girls. Anything can happen within that time frame. Even the college kids, I'm like, all right, you're going to go to college. You're probably capable of doing this, but you never know what's going to happen in college with their experiences.
Yeah.
Brain's still changing, all that kind of stuff. Some of the kids that are very prim and proper, I say, you're going to come back with a guitar with long hair. You never know what college is going to, what experiences are going to do to the kids. So I can never guess on that. Like I never knew. I never knew Luke would throw 68. I never thought Andrew. I knew Andrew would be good, but I never knew Andrew would be at 28 right now.
Right.
I would have never thought that. So I get surprised. Then you start thinking, all right, when is the proper time to start training kids? Because I've noticed kids that are kind of like not really dedicated, they're goofy, or they're not really putting in the work, and then all of a sudden they go to college and they get in the right program and they blow up.
Right.
And you're like, holy shit! I remember destroying this kid on the football team, and now he's in the pros.
J.R. Redmond.
Who?
J.R. Redmond. Your boy from Paulsboro.
Oh, Isaac Redmond.
Oh, Isaac Redmond, that's right.
Red Zone Redmond.
Yeah, you would always tell me that story.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point though. But the problem just becomes is finding that right program and the program that fits for their personality.
Yeah. A lot of the kids. There's kids. If you knew, Dane, you know some of the kids I work with, but everything from Alden.
Yep.
To some of the CBA kids, it's a whole wide range, but they're definitely not meatheads. I think they like the social scene. One of the things with what I do is we're not cookie cutter, so they're not running through the same program. They're not saying they got to be in at 3 and then you're out at 4. Like my kids come in whenever they can come in. They work out. They take pictures together. Some of them go to prom together. So it's more of like a social gathering. And then I'm kind of off to the side. All right, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I kind of trick them into training, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little more tighter, just so it would free up more time for me. But as of right now, that's what works with the kids I got. But
so, on that note, before we go into what we describe as a Red Hot Minute, tell us where people can find you, where you're at on social media, all that stuff.
Well, the Instagram, I'm Strength Athletes with an S, and Critical Mass NJ. They're basically where I'm at on Instagram. Facebook is just my own name and Strength Athletes. I do have strengthathlete.com, but it's something I really don't keep up with just because I'm keeping up with the actual business, social media and website and all that kind of stuff, so I don't have time to hit that up. But that's where I'm at, and I'm on the Jersey Shore by Asbury Park in Monmouth County, so if any throwers are out there looking for training, any track and field event.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
Football players, I don't want you.
All right, John. So I got some questions for you. It's one or the other that you have to pick from.
Okay.
So before I start this, I want to mention that you also threw 18 meters with the glide, like 58.10.
58.9. I don't know what that is. What is that?
That's like 8. It's like 17.95, I think. So my first question comes off of that: spin or glide?
Spin.
Okay. MGMT or Tame Impala?
MGMT. Better experiences with that right now.
Pizza or tacos?
Pizza.
Nelson or Hoffa?
Ooh. Technically, I'd say Hoffa, but I'm a Nelson fan for what he could do.
Yeah. Shrooms or pot?
Shrooms. Most definitely.
70.
You will. Everything makes sense. Everything makes sense.
Okay, here's one. I want Trevor to, I don't know if you have any, Trevor, but here's one because you were on the ring. You were 70-footer, and everything in your football.
Wait, he was 70-footer.
Oh wait, no. 70-footer was Rob Soufflon. You were Kalnas 70.
Kalnas, yeah.
And on YouTube, you were Kalnas 70, and you were number 70 in high school football, and your uncles would always say, put in 70, it was a good year.
Yeah.
And everything that you ever told me was that you had to throw 70 feet. And always that's what you would think about. I have to throw 70 feet. So with that being said, you throw 70 feet, but you don't go to the Olympics, or you throw, let's say, 21 meters, but you make it to the Olympics. Which would you pick?
70 feet. No, I mean, I would love the experience of the Olympics, but I told everybody, if I ever hit 70 feet, I'm taking my shoes off right there. Whoever's closest to me, I'm throwing right in their face. Taking my clothes off and running around the track.
I couldn't tell you how many times, John, that you would say, like, I want, before we go, I wanted to share this as introspective as he described all of those experiences. John would be the one at practice, and he'd be sitting there, and we'd be in the middle of training hard, and he'd be like, okay, hang on a second. You put your leg up like this, and you drop 315 pounds on it, right on your femur. How much money would you take? And I'd be like, dude, I don't know. Can I walk after that? Yeah, you can still walk, but it takes you a year until you can walk. $10 million. And he'd be like, you do it for $10 million? Are you serious? And it was always like, okay, how about this one? You jump off the balcony, I'll give you $50 million. If you die, your family gets it. Would you do it? I don't know. 70 million. Probably. But what if you die? And it was always like...
I think about dumb shit, man. I think about dumb shit. It's very entertaining. I love my imagination. I literally used to fake being punished so that I could just sit in my room and think.
That's the
greatest.
greatest.
My mom would be like, he's punished, he's not coming out. And I'd be sitting in my room, like, listening to Enter Sandman or something. Picturing some weird alien chick with 3 boobs or something. Who knows? But yeah, what would you do, Dane? Dane, right now, you have too many kids.
What's the scenario? Give me one scenario.
That's it. Would you cut your dick off for $50 million? Fuck yes, I'd do it.
For $50 million.
Yeah, I would do it for a lot less.
Dude, I don't know if I can. I don't know about the private parts that like that. I wanted to go off of like a broken arm. Like I swear you would come up with these ones like you, and but it would always come back to like if that ever happened and I got that money, I'm gonna run around naked and just show everybody. Give me one without my penis.
75,000 to pull off all 5 fingernails off your left hand.
100%. Absolutely.
75,000.
All my fingernails? For 75 grand? Absolutely. I'd do it for 50 grand.
There's a torture device specifically for that.
So this is literally you just chiming in and creating that discourse between you and I about 70. That's what every practice would be like.
Every single practice.
Yeah.
What would you do?
And what was funny is that Mark would sit there and Mark would just shake his head and then he would come in like, wait, you would take that?
I just saw his old ass on Friday.
Oh, jeez. It's pretty grumpy. All right, so
he's only like 42. I thought he was so old. I'm like, he's only 4 years older than me or something like that.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he's young.
All right, so Kalnas, do you have any other words of wisdom? This is easily going to be the most vulgar, existential throw show that we've done and probably will ever do until you come back on again for another podcast.
Yeah, this parent's going, you're not going to that fucking guy. Wait, what am I supposed to be doing?
Do you have anything to add?
I have no idea, man. I'm kind of fried out now. I was actually going through this with a migraine, but now that the whiskey's kicked in, it's kind of kicking out. But I was struggling. When he was trying to figure out the microphone situation.
Oh, you were getting frustrated.
Dude, I felt like I was going to vomit up here.
Oh, that sucks.
But I'm good now. I'm getting better. I don't know. Keep grinding. That's about it.
Yeah.
Nothing too motivating other than just wake up another day, be glad you're happy and alive, or even if you're not happy, you're still alive, which means you should be happy. And then grind out your day. No excuses.
There we go.
There you go. Thanks, Kalnas.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye, ladies.
All right, peace.
See ya.
I thought that this camp was invaluable to my technique and how I throw.
My distance has already improved a ton.